And I call upon our government to open up like other governments have, and you will hear about that this morning. Like the
When CNN covered a press conference in Washington, D.C. in 2009, where Dr. Edgar Mitchell encouraged U.S. government to release its UFO files, the hope was that the issue finally was given serious news coverage.
Former Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, the sixth man to walk on the moon, told the National Press Club he's convinced.
But there isn't convincing proof that's going to convince the entire world at this point.
That is correct. That is what we're trying to open up.
We're about to go out and do our little hoax.
But CNN chose to let two boys with air balloons have just as much time in the report, demonstrating how they managed to fool UFO believers.
Again, we're not trying to prove or disprove anything, but it's okay to be skeptical.
Okay then. Jim, thank you very much indeed for that. Jim Acosta there.
You bet.
Well, the role of the media in the flying saucer phenomenon is a very, very important one. I think it's very clear that in the United States, at the very least, that there were efforts during the very earliest days to try to get the media to basically dampen down expectations and dampen down public enthusiasm concerning extraterrestrial life and the flying saucer phenomenon. And this is actually documented. And ever since that, we have seen many, many examples of how the media doesn't really explore or doesn't really investigate flying saucer reports, and that various media organs have been bought out by the CIA. For example, the National Enquirer was actually bought out by a CIA asset who used it as a very clever way to debunk flying saucer reports by basically sensationalizing it, making it part of the kind of tabloid media, whereby serious media investigators would not do any research into a flying saucer report that had been in any way covered by the National Enquirer or these tabloids. So that was a very clever piece of psychological warfare, in my opinion, to try and get the mass media disinterested in the flying saucer phenomenon.
So it's a very, very complex issue, and the secrecy isn't that hard to maintain if you have this sort of infiltration into major institutions, media, and also the ability simply to float nonsensical stories out there. Because people hear the word UFO and extraterrestrial, they think somebody from a trailer park in West Virginia who's floated on board a spacecraft had sex with someone from Mars and claims they have a baby in an incubator. Or, you know, just all kinds of nonsense. The truth of it is actually more interesting. The truth of the technologies and the fact that the extraterrestrial technologies are so advanced that they interface directly with coherent thought. Like we have coherent light in a laser, they have technologies that interface with thought, that interface with conscious mind, that their development of artificial intelligence that's integrated into these spacecraft is so advanced that they pick up on a directed. It's fascinating, and this is what we've been experimenting with, and the whole paradigm becomes a new paradigm of understanding the structure of the cosmos. But most of the information that's out in the public on this issue has been a carnival of silliness, and that keeps most serious people sort of in the closet on it.
Is this the reason why so few scientists engage in the UFO subject? The fear of being associated with the silly side of the issue. Is this also why it's never commented on by astronomers or by space organizations such as NASA?
This is not just a simple civilian organization. There's a great military connection there. There's a lot of classified security clearances involved in being able to work at NASA. You can't just stroll in there. So these are people who fit a certain personality profile. That is, they know how to follow orders, they know how to keep their mouth shut, and you know, keep their head down, and their career will do just fine. That's how most people are who live in a bureaucratic world. This is how secrets are kept. There are open secrets that are kept for years and years and years because people agree just not to talk about it. And I think that within NASA, this is very likely the case regarding the UFO issue.
But like Dr. Edgar Mitchell, people retired from NASA have commented on the issue. Astronaut Gordon Cooper has told the world straight out about encountering a UFO at close range during his flight in the Mercury capsule in 1963. And before he died, he also stated, "For many years I have lived with a secret, in a secrecy imposed on all specialists in astronautics. I can now reveal that every day in the USA, our radar instruments capture objects of form and composition unknown to us."
I would like to believe that we could invite serious scientists into this arena because it will be changing the paradigm of science as we know it. We know that these craft are not traveling with fossil fuel gas, that there is a technology behind them, that maybe this technology could help the Earth and renewable fuels. If we could get scientists just to use that motivation, to look at the technology behind the craft, then maybe we could invite science to come in and change the paradigm of transportation, of electromagnetism, of all these really advanced technologies. But we need to invite them. I think too many are afraid of ridicule. Too many. I have encountered many that are curious but are not willing to go public. We're changing times now, and for the sake of our children, our grandchildren, and the future, some scientists are going to have to take the risk.
Well, it's my hope that we open this whole issue up. And as I have said frequently, we're at a point in history where we have to become a part of the neighborhood of inhabited planets, rather than like a neighborhood of a community, which we have not even acknowledged that community exists up until this point.
An event with the power to institute a global revolution in technology, communications, energy supply, environmental concerns, and even the way we regard ourselves and our fellow beings. A paradigm shift of unprecedented proportions, impacting nearly every part of our existence. Is this what we are facing? And will we have to rewrite our entire human history?
In the hallowed halls of national security agencies and the Pentagon, top military, top security people, the top people know, essentially, this reality. But the masses of people don't. And the people in authority, the elite, as it were, the power brokers, have desperately tried to keep the lid on this thing because, Terry, it's not simply visitors from another planet or from another star or another galaxy or even another dimension. It's not simply that. It isn't that simple. We've learned over the years that several of these intelligences have been involved with us from the beginning of human history, and the evidence has been collected that the human race literally is a hybrid race, and that some of these advanced intelligences, from wherever they're from, have been involved in genetically manipulating us as a species from the beginning of our history. Man is a hybrid. From a lower order, we've been genetically manipulated by advanced intelligences into what we are. Now that in itself is dynamite, for God's sake.
Have alien visitors thousands of years ago been involved in the creation of the human DNA? Is that why we have never found the missing link? In 1930, in an ancient mine tunnel in Mexico, a strange skull was found which is different from anything seen before. This 900-year-old cranium, which has been named the Star Child skull, differs from humans and all other primates in several extraordinary ways. The bone structure is only about 1/3 as thick, and the weight is less than half as much as human bone. Still, it's more than twice as durable as a human skull and has a never-before-seen web of interwoven fibers acting as reinforcement. The head of the Star Child Research Project, Lloyd Pye, has, through research at several scientific institutions, been able to conclude that it's not a misshapen human skull.
So by the end of '99, I had convinced myself that it wasn't a human deformity, and I had stacked up all these physiological differences. But none of those physiological differences, either individually or all together, meant anything to science.
In 2010, DNA tests were conducted in one of the leading laboratories in the United States. The results were compared to hundreds of thousands of different species through the enormous DNA database of the United States National Institute of Health, NIH.
So when they sent the Star Child's results into the NIH database, some of it came back without any doubt as part human. I mean, as human DNA. They could tell you where it sat on what chromosome. It's very precise. And several dozen of those came back, so it was just no doubt that part of the Star Child is human, no doubt. But to their great surprise, and everybody's surprise, part of them, another percentage, came back not found in the database, meaning not found on Earth. So that is a very strong indication that the Father's contribution is not from Earth. It's not human, it's alien.
The fact that the Star Child clearly contains human DNA, while at the same time having a radically different genome altogether, is a strong indication of advanced genetic engineering.
So what the Star Child does is it opens up for debate, serious debate, that argument that we too are genetically engineered. If it was genetically engineered 900 years ago, and we can prove that, then it's not a real big step to consider that human beings were created 200,000 years ago by genetic engineering, as the Sumerians say in their tablets, written 5,000 years ago.
Can this Mexican skull actually confirm the reality of genetic engineering in our ancient past? With the results of the DNA testing, this relic is now considered an archaeological sensation, even though the scientific establishment refuses to acknowledge it.
I am convinced, based on years of research, that we right now collectively, the mass of us, are as ignorant in our understanding of reality as were the people 300 years ago who believed that the Earth was flat and that it was the center of the universe.
The idea that the human race perhaps has a past and an origin very different from what science proclaims today brings us to possibly the most bizarre aspect of the UFO phenomenon, the so-called alien abductions. It first came to public awareness in the early 1970s, when stories began to surface of people being taken on board alien craft after being rendered passive. Incredible stories were revealed, and the remarkable similarities between the stories is what has triggered the interest of researchers.
My colleagues and I have heard directly from thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of people over the last 20 years about their abduction experiences. And so we know that this is a very, very, very prevalent phenomenon throughout, probably throughout the world.